Okay, project for tonight is cleaning up some of this trim around the garage door. As you may recall, up here at the top, that header doesn't actually come down far enough to seal up with the top of the garage door, so there's a few inches just open there, and since I don't really want birds and who knows what else getting in there, I'm going to try to fix that gap. And then of course you can see all of this trim on the outside is rotten or missing, so I'm going to see what I can do about that. So first thing will be obviously taking down all of the existing stuff, and then we'll get to building the new stuff. Alright, well, as you can see, I've made some good progress. Pretty much that whole top box that was originally built, I assume, to fill that gap, is down. Unfortunately, it turns out that this trim that was here is actually attached quite well. They used some pretty stout nails. And also my pry bar is not the thinnest, so trying to get it in between this trim and the building is kind of tricky. Honestly, I would be tempted to just leave it if it weren't for the fact that all of the stuff on the side is rotten and doesn't actually go all the way to the ground. The reason I'm going to have to stop for the night is that because the trim is attached so well, it's making a ton of noise as I remove it, and in one case I actually had to get the reciprocating saw out, and that's super loud. So in the interest of not pissing off the neighbors, I'm going to call it for the night and hopefully pick this up again in the morning. See if we can get this all boxed in correctly. Alright, until then. Okay, back for day 2 on the trim around the garage door. I had to knock off last night because it was getting late and I didn't want to wake up the neighbors. I also wanted to get a new tool for taking down the remaining trim. As you can see, the wrecking bar that I've been using has a pretty blunt end on it. It's kind of hard to get that into tight spaces. And since this trim is actually attached pretty well, that was becoming a problem. So I went out and got myself a new pry bar that has a much finer point on it. I basically went into the local Home Depot and bought the one with the sharpest point that I could find. So I'm hoping that will work better for this trim and I can at least get it started and then finish it off with the big one. So once I get that down, I will go ahead and start building out the new frame up at the top to fill that gap, and we'll see how that goes. Had to stop for a moment and just show you this rather unusual situation. I just threw this at the garbage can, it hit the edge and balanced perfectly. There it goes. Alright, back to work. Okay, all of the old trim is down, so that's good. What's not so good, first of all, I did a little bit more damage to that drip edge up there than I was hoping to as I was taking out that top piece. And in retrospect, I almost wish I had just left the top piece, because it turns out there's nothing in the middle to nail to up here, which puts a rather big hitch in my plans, because I was expecting to be able to screw a 2x4 in up here to use as an edge. So, gonna have to rethink those plans a bit. Yeah, not sure what I'm gonna do, but I guess we'll see. I might start with just the side trim first, because that should be easy. It just screws in over the top of the post here, so that won't be so bad. The top maybe, so let's see what happens. Oh, and this thing worked fantastic. But when I said it was sharp, focus, not gonna focus. All right, when I said it was sharp, I was not kidding. I dropped it and it actually cut my jacket. Get out of the way, strap. Take my word for it, it cut my jacket. That'll teach me to wear clothes I like when I'm doing demolition. Lesson learned. Alright, we have the first two pieces. The other side looks pretty much exactly like this. I'm just attaching these with stainless steel screws, as you can see here. And I didn't countersink them because it's pretty cold out here and I'm a little worried about cracking the PVC trim that I'm using. I can come back and drive those the rest of the way in sometime when it's warmer if I need to. But they should be nice and sealed against the weather, and they're stainless so they won't rust. And this gap here is because I screwed up my plan again. I was thinking I could use two pieces of this, but it's going to stick out super far, and I forgot that it can't go in that way any further. So this happens to be pretty much exactly 3.5 inches, so I may just take back the other piece of this that I was going to use and get myself a 1x4 piece of this trim, and I think that'll fill this gap perfectly and I won't have to rip down one of these. We'll see though, because these were actually, I think, might have been cheaper than the 1x4s, so might be worth my while to just rip one down. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that. In the meantime, I'm not too concerned about it. I'm probably just going to leave this be for today, and then I'll come back to it later. All right, now to figure out what to do with the rest of this. Okay, so actually before I move on to any of the other trim, I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the keypad before I lock myself out. And that just goes in with a couple of screws, one of which it slips down over on the top, and then the other one goes right into the hole down here at the bottom, and that'll hold it in place nice and secure. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, just need to go get the bottom cover again, and this will be all good to go. Okay, so after some screwing around, I think I've figured out how I'm going to handle this. As you can see, I put some kind of filler boards in between there that I can screw into, and then I've screwed 2x4s in the length of the door. And what I'm going to do is basically frame off of those a little box that should take up all of that space in between right there, and then I will hang, get out of the way, finger. Then I will hang trim off of that, and it should all look nice and pretty and finished, and there won't be a giant gap at the top of the door. All right, here we go. All right, well, it's not the best trim work I've ever done, but considering the building it's attached to, I think it's good enough. Already looks better. There's not a giant gap at the top. Obviously, I have a bunch more work to do. It's not boxed in completely yet, and I'm still missing the trim on the sides, but it's good progress. All right, thanks for watching.